Hello again, everyone. This is Zombie Kids Rule, and I'm back with another tutorial. This one is going to be it's a fairly simple way to do a skill check. And so, I'm a big fan of turn-based, D&D style games. And so this is going to be a way to do a skill check, and you're modifying that skill check using the player's or the actor's an attribute and a skill value. So we're gonna use their skill and their attribute to modify a random skill check roll to determine if they succeed or fail. So again, this is going to be one way to do a skill check where you're randomly rolling a value to see if it is a success or a fail, and you're going to modify that random roll value by some attribute that you want that makes sense and some skill that you want that makes sense. And in order for this to work, I'm working under the presumption that I'm using a system in my game where there are a bunch of skills that people have, and those skills have a value, and as the game progresses, those skills change, those skills increase. Okay, so anyway, this is let me show you what it does in the game, and then I'll break it down for you. And I will say that again, this is for testing purposes, so this is showing the functionality. You might not do this actually in the game as far as what you're showing the player, but for my purposes, to make sure that this works correctly and to make sure I understand how this works, I built it a certain way so it tells me each step of the way what it's doing, and I know that it's actually working. So in game, here we go. We're going to walk over to this little random roll type guy, and it says skill check. Reed is using their thief skill for lockpicking. So we have the actor, and we know the skill they're using, and or I should say the skill type they're using, and then the specific skill, which is lockpicking. Random roll monster. You rolled a 90, so it's telling me from 1 to 100 what I rolled, a 90. Your luck bonus, so the attribute I chose for this example is luck, is a 6. Your thief skill bonus is 15, so that's drawing from the skill type. Adding your luck and thief skill bonuses, your final roll is 111, and your skill check succeeded. So let's try this again. Skill check. Reed is using their thief skill for lockpicking. You rolled a 69. Your luck bonus is 6. Your thief skill is 15. Adding those together, it's a final roll of 90. You succeeded. I know succeeded. I want to see if I can get them to fail. 24. They're going to fail this time. You rolled a 24. Your luck bonus is 6, so that's 30. Your thief skill bonus is 15, so should be 45. Adding those together, your final roll is 45. Your skill check failed. And that's it. That's all it does right there. So let's stop that here. Excuse me. And so every step of the way, as I tested this, I wanted the event to display what it's doing so that I could know for sure that it's actually doing what I want it to do. And so this seems like there's a lot of variables in here, but it's just demonstrating one way to do this. And so let's break it down. The first control variable, thief skill of Reed equals 75. Now, this is just mimicking that whatever game I was building, for instance, it uses skills and they're being tracked somewhere. So they have a value when they first get set. Like let's say Reed picks a thief skill, it gets an initial value of 10. And then as the game progresses and Reed uses those thief skills, that value continues to increase, right? And at this point in the game, Reed's thief skill is 75. And so for this test, I just had to, put that variable out there. Thief skill of Reed is 75. But if this was a real game, it would already be being tracked somewhere, right? So that's setting the thief skill of your actor. Then the next variable is skill type. And this is just breaking it out into different categories, right? And so you could store your skill types for this variable values. You could store this in an array where you put all of your skill type values um, into an array and you pull those out as appropriate. And so we have a variable for skill type, and which is my overarching type of skill, like thief skills. Okay, and then we have another variable, skill to check. So within the thief skill area, there may be multiple types of things like lock picking or picking pockets or hiding in shadows or whatever. So this variable is the specific skill that we want to check. Okay. And then and it's being, and instead of tracking in this example, instead of tracking different things like lockpicking has a value, pickpocketing has a value, hiding has a value, hiding in shadows has a value, they're all controlled by the thief skill, right? So that's just the way I set this up. So we have the thief skill of read is 75. The skill type, the overarching area of the skill, is going to be thief skill. And then the specific skill is going to be lock picking. And I'm just doing this so that we can display to the player what they're using. Then we want to modify the random roll check. So the skill modifier value, in this instance, I'm setting it to 5. And in different events, I might want to have the modifier be different. I might want it higher or lower, depending on how much I want that skill to influence the result of the roll. So in this instance, I just made it a 5. Skill modifier value is 5. Attribute type. So now, when you use certain different skills and skill checks, you might use luck, you might use strength, you might use intelligence, you might use dexterity, agility, whatever makes sense for that particular skill. So we're using a variable attribute type equals luck. And again, you could store all of your values for attribute type in an array. Luck, strength, wisdom, intelligence, dexterity, agility, whatever it is you use in your game. You could store those in an array. And then we're going to make a modifier for that because I don't want to use all their luck, right? So, I mean, it depends on how your system is built. If your attributes are very, very low, right? Like let's say your attributes never go higher than 20, then you will want to play with how much you want to modify that. If your attributes go all the way up to 100, then again you want to play with how much you want to modify that to add to your roll for a check. So we have the thief skill of read has a value. We have the skill type so that we can communicate that of thief skill. We have the skill to check to communicate lockpicking. Then we have the skill modifier value, which we're just for this testing, I set it to 5. We have the attribute type, which for display purposes, right, we're setting it to luck. The attribute value modifier value is set to 4 for this one because that's how much I want it to impact. Then we're just displaying a text. So we set all these variables up, to start with. So then I'm showing a text skill check, and then this right here is just if you didn't know this already, when you hover over text, then if you look down, slash capital C in brackets and then a number is going to change the color of your text. So I just for example purposes, I threw these different colors in here. So slash C9 in front of the slash N1, slash N1 is grabbing the actor's name, and then slash C0 sets the color of the text back to white. And so you have to change, if you change the text and you only want it to be for a single word or for a phrase or something, then you have to set it back to white, which is slash C0 or whatever, main color text you're using. So the actor and the first actor is using their variable 93, which was skill type of thief skill, for the variable 94, which is lockpicking. And these slash C's, again, are just changing the color of the text. I'm changing it to color 9, and then I'm changing it back to white. Then I'm changing it to 10, and I'm changing it back to white. And then I'm changing it to 11. And then in actuality, I should have put this here to change this back to white so that the period is in white. So I should have done that. Then we're going to randomly roll. So we up at the top here, we set up our values that we needed. So then when we actually do our skill check, just rolling a random number between 1 and 100. So variable 1, random number equals random 1 to 100. And you can do this any way you want. If it's a traditional D&D style, you'd do a roll of 1 to 20. And then your modifiers would be much, much smaller, right? In this one, I just used a random roll of 1 to 100, so my modifiers are bigger, right? So I roll my random number, then I do another text. You rolled I tell you what you rolled in different color, right? And variable 1, so /v1 is displaying the result of the random roll. Then we have a control variable again. Attribute modifier is going to equal the luck of Reed. So in this instance, I know that I want to use that particular actor's luck. So I take my variable attribute modifier, which we had not set up here. And when you go into here, you can use game data. And there's a whole bunch of game data you can use. And one of them is a specific actor. And then you can use all of these different things: their level, their XP, HP, MP, max HP, max MP, attack, defense, magic attack, magic defense, agility, luck, or TP. So you can use any of those. Plus, or you could use any of these other options. So that's what that's doing. So we're setting the attribute modifier variable to the luck of Reed. Then we don't want to use all of Reed's luck because it's too high of a number. So now we're gonna say, okay, fine, variable 11 attribute modifier. We're going to divide that by the attribute modifier value, which up here we set to 4. So we're going to divide Reed's luck by 4. And this is how you do that, right? Attribute modifier divided by the variable attribute modifier value. And then we're going to say, okay, wait, we randomly rolled our number here. So now the variable 1 random number, which we already had a result of, we're going to add to that the attribute modifier, which is what we just did here, right? So luck of Reed divided by 4 is our attribute modifier, and we're adding that to the random number, okay? And so it's increasing in value. Then we have another text, right? You're changing the color, and then variable 109, right, which is attribute type of luck. Your luck bonus is, and then it's variable 111, which is the attribute modifier, right? So that's just showing us the bonus that we determined here, right? The how much we're modifying it. That's where we're calling it a bonus. So once we've done that, we then go to the skill. So variable 100, the skill modifier, equals the thief's skill of Reed, which was set to 75, right? Again, it'd be tracked separately, but for this purposes, we're just manually doing it. So the skill modifier is set to the thief's skill of Reed, which is 75. And then we're going to take that variable 100 skill modifier, divide it by the skill modifier value, which is skill modifier value. I set it to 5. So we're going to set that, we're going to divide the thief skill of Reed, we're going to divide it by 5. That's going to give us a skill modifier. And then we're going to take that random number that we rolled, and then we added the attribute modifier, and now we're going to add the skill modifier to it. So we're just keeping increasing the result of the random roll. In theory, you could also decrease it if you had penalties. So then we display that. We say, okay, your variable 93, right, which is skill type of thief skill, your thief skill bonus is 100, which is the skill modifier, right? Then up here, when we determined what the skill modifier is, that's what's being communicated as a bonus. Then we have more text. So adding your variable 109, which was attribute type of luck, adding your luck and 93, right? Thief skill, bonuses, your final roll is A, and then variable 1 is actually the random number, right? So we started off with a number, and then we increased it by the attribute modifier, and then we increased it by the skill modifier, and now down here, we're presenting that, the result of the random roll plus its modifications. And then we're going to do a simple conditional branch. If the random number is less than or equal to 50, then we're going to tell them your skill check failed. And or else, meaning that it's 50 or above, your skill check succeeded. And that's it. That's the totality of this. So once again, you can make this as complicated as you want. You can do as many modifications as you want. You can do things that add to the random roll. You can do things that take away if there's a penalty. But the principles are very, very simple in this particular instance. And you don't have to go this involved. You don't have to do skill types, skill checks, right? I mean, you don't have to do things like tracking skill values. You could do something just as simple as, I'm going to modify whatever I'm doing by an attribute, right? And so you could just do that the way it showed within this event, where you're just taking the attribute and then dividing it by a number to lower it, or you could just add it. It depends on how you're doing your whatever it is you're doing. If you want to use the full value of the attribute, perfectly fine. It all depends on what you're trying to do and the numbers you're working with. So again, thief skill of read 75. This could be tracked outside of this event normally. We have a skill type, and again, all of those values could be stored in an array so that you're just pulling the specific value you want for the specific event. Then the skill to check, again, that could be all those values could be stored in an array, and you're just pulling from that array for the appropriate value. And then you're using a modifier, right? And the reason I named it this way is because I want to use that variable over and over and over again. Because once this event is done, it's over. Nothing has to be stored, right? In theory, because this is all unique to this event, except for, say, the thief skill of read, which would be tracked outside of this event. So I want to reuse these variables over and over and over again in my skill checks. And so I have a skill modifier value, and then I have my attribute type, which again could be stored in an array, all those values. Anything that is within quotation marks in an array is what's going to be the value, right? The value that's being displayed. And then we have the attribute modifier value, right? Because I'm going to modify the value of the attribute. I'm going to modify the value of the skill. And then, of course, we just have our text where we're changing the color, and we're using the /n to show the actor's name, and the /v, with the brackets and the numbers to show the value of the variable, whether that be a number or an actual text. And then we're doing our random roll. And again, you could set this whatever makes sense for your system, however you want to do. Either very low numbers, random roll of 1 to 20, or very high numbers, right? And of course, we tell them what we did. So for testing purposes, I know exactly what this is doing. And this is invaluable because when I was building this, I found lots of mistakes. And as I went through it, I said, oh, that's not right. And then having this display to me shows me exactly where it went wrong so that I could fix it. You might not do this in game. You might just show, skill check and then show the result and you're done. You don't show all the behind the scenes thing. It's up to you. And then, of course, we have the attribute modifier that we're using. And then we have we're going to basically take that modifier, the attribute, and we're going to divide it by the attribute modifier value. And then we're going to change the results of our random roll, right? We're going to add that modifier to it. And then we tell them what happened. And then we do the same thing with our skill, right? Skill modifier is the thief skill of read. And then the skill modifier is divided by the skill modifier value, whatever we set it to, right? Whatever we set these modifier values to, because it makes sense for our game. And then again, we change that random number result to, we're going to add the skill modifier to it. And then we just communicate, right, to the player, or for your purposes, the testing, to say, yeah, this is working right. And all of these types of things within these texts are the same. We're just changing the color. We're using the variable values. And then, just watch for any little things. And then what I will say is that you obviously have to be cognizant of your text, where this little line is. Of course, you can see this little line probably. And so depending on what the value is in your variables, you have to plan accordingly and manually do your line returns. Otherwise, if you don't, then your text could disappear, because the values that you're using, like thief skill, lock picking, right? Those, depending on how you name your skill types or your skills that you're checking, they could be very long. In which case, if you're displaying variable values in the text, then it might, the line might get cut off. So you have to just watch for that. And then the conditional branch, right? Where you do whatever makes sense to you. If it's lower than a certain number, then you failed. If it's greater than a certain number, you passed or you succeeded. And that's the end of the results. So anyway, and then over here, of course, we're just testing this with an NPC. So that's really not relevant to the functionality that we were trying to test. So anyway, listen, I hope this is helpful. Yeah, we'll discard the changes. So again, I hope this is helpful. This is just one way to do a skill check where you're also modifying the results of that skill check using a actor's attribute, or attributes, right? You could do multiple, or a skill that they have. And I do this because one of the things I envisioned, some of the games that I like most are the ones where the actors within the game, right, the characters that you're playing, have skills that they improve. And by using those skills, they improve. And you can look at them and say, oh, my skill in this area, is this. And I like the fact that those skills that you increase, and your attributes, affect things in the game, like your success in doing certain things. And so this is just one way to do this. Again, there may be plugins that do all this for you. There may be other ways to do this. If I mentioned arrays, if you're not sure how to use an array, I have other tutorials that use arrays, both with text and with numbers. And so you could go back and look at those, and look at any one of those that are using an array, and that will help to explain how you could do that. So again, I hope this is helpful to you. This is kind of a core feature in any of the games that I think I would want to develop. And so I'm glad you found my channel. And if these videos are helpful, if these tutorials are helpful, please like, subscribe, get notifications, leave comments. I love comments. I really love to hear whether or not these are helpful to you, whether or not these are, things they inspire you to say, hey, you know what, I can do this a different way. I can make this better. I can do even more with this than you're showing. So anyway, by all means, give feedback. And if there are good resources that you found that might help people on their journey of learning RPG Maker, any version, then please leave them in the comments, and let everybody benefit from them. So thank you very much, folks. And I will try to get some more videos up. But this is just again, skill check with modifying that check by attributes and, say, particular skills. Thank you very much, folks, and until I see you again, happy game developing. Goodbye.